There's a heightened sensitivity in the world right now. A lot of talk about inclusivity and gender equality. For women, it's been about the gender pay gap, political representation, the Me Too movement, the highest maternal mortality rate among developed countries, and what power we have to do with what we want with our bodies. We see transgender people facing higher levels of domestic violence and hate crimes, and gender nonconforming people facing violence and prejudice. This leaves a sector of the population with their own work to do. And today I'm very excited to have a guest who saw a need and decided to take action to help men navigate what it means to be a man. Bob Conlin is a men's leadership coach, author, leader, a mentor in the International Coaching Foundation, and the co-founder of Alchemy of Men, which was founded when he saw a void in how men's work was being defined as either hyper-masculine aggressive or super feminine sensitivity. When everywhere you look, people are telling men how they should be, what they should do, and how they should act, he decided to do something about it. So Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Lisa. It's great to be here. Appreciate the introduction.
Sure. All right. Well, I think this is going to be fascinating work. And in our world, it is so needed. And I want to go on the record here with a personal statement of, yes, I identify as a woman and I understand the challenges we face in navigating our careers, parenting, and the narrative that how we've been told women are supposed to be. But men have their own version of that. I have a husband, a son, and 2 young grandsons that have to live in this world where they are told how to be a man. And a lot of the anger against men is a result of men feeling like they have to buy into the story they've been told on how to think and act. So, Bob, we're going to go ahead and tee up the first question. I know you just didn't pop out of your teenage years into this type of work.
Sure.
Tell me what you were doing before.
Yeah, so before I got into men's work, I was in a healing profession. I was a critical care registered nurse, working bedside, very life or death situations every shift, and helped a lot of people cross over. And I think it was in those moments where I started noticing, particularly in men, like men were having really significant health challenges at pretty early ages. And I was wondering, what are the energetics of that, right? Of course, there's, diet, genetics, life choices that impact men's health, but also is there an energetic or other component that could be impacting them? And I started to notice that men haven't had the space to share freely what's actually going on with them, sharing their emotional body, sharing their dreams, desires, sharing their challenges, right? Having a safe space for that. And I don't have research to back this up, but I bet, decades of that does have an impact on the body and particularly the heart. I worked in a critical care cardiac ward, and I literally say these men were dying of broken hearts. And the things that they were told to do their whole lives or taught to do by, their fathers or their fathers' fathers was, to work hard, suck it up, keep going. And, in those last critical moments, they weren't talking about how grateful they were that they didn't love in the way that they wanted to, or that how grateful they worked so hard and missed out on family events. They were concerned about the people they loved, and they're concerned about the things that they missed out on and how they ground themselves down to the bone. And I really think that was a seed that got planted. For me to start looking at, how are we supporting men in a meaningful, intentional, conscious way to help them be themselves and be more fully expressed on the experience of life they actually want.
Yes. And really, when you think about it, you were really being a researcher here on the front lines, noticing this anecdotal evidence with person after person where you saw this and you were able to connect the dots in there. So I love that, you had that opportunity to take a step back and ask really what is going on underneath this.
Yeah, 100%. And that I think that's where the seed got planted, and what actually watered the seed was when I became a father to a son. 4 years ago. I became a father at 45. If you do the math, I'm 49. I got into the game pretty late. And I think my resistance to becoming a father so much was just fear and confusion around for me, what it meant to be a man, let alone a father. And then
Mm-hmm.
now I had this little baby in my life, and I was like, I got to do right, not only by him, but like for myself in this process too. And that's what really had me start to look at the landscape of men's work. I've been in professional development for almost 10 years. Master certified coach. I support a lot of folks in creating experiences and the results in life that are meaningful to them. And here I was myself looking like there's a gap here. Like, what does it mean for me to be a man? What does it mean for me to be a father? What is the example in the way in which I live my life that my son is going to observe and pick up on and grow and create his definition of that? So I was like, ooh, I think I have some work to do.
Yes. No, and that self-awareness is so important. I think, whether you are a father to whatever gender child, when if we think about little girls, like, how do you model being a father to that? I mean, you're planting those seeds, you're putting that blueprint down. It's really, really important.
100%.
Yeah. So I want to ask about a little bit more specific, because I know you're on top of this, is what is the belief system that men are told that they have to buy into? So if people are wondering, what are you talking about? Let's get really, let's talk about what is it that men are told they have to be?
Yeah, I think the paradigm's shifting, which is great. But I think traditionally what we've been taught is that our value and our worth is in what we produce, or it's in how we provide. Well, that's part of it. It's not the whole picture. And, I think that leads men to be very driven towards success or towards providing, which are both noble endeavors. However, it doesn't paint the whole picture. So, it's work hard. If it's not working out the way you want, work harder, suck it up. There's no time for feelings. There's no time for emotions. Like, keep going. Vulnerability is weakness. Like, all these kind of just broad brush strokes of what it's really trying to teach us to what being a man is, but it's actually robbing us from what being human is. Right? Like, as human beings, we have a full spectrum of emotions, and here we're telling a whole subset of human beings that it's wrong to feel this way, think this way, act this way, etc. So I think that one, it's really it has an impact, it has an effect, right? So, and that being said, like, when we look at maybe our grandfathers' generations, even before that, like, we needed stoic, tough guys who went off to war, fought the battles, came home, didn't bring it home, shut it down, and just plowed through to provide for family. Like, that was kind of what they came home to, from the world wars and the conflicts we were having across the globe. But then I think my generation and maybe the generation before, certainly the generation coming up, is like, all of that has come at a cost now, right? Like, divorce rates high, suicide among men is like 3 times that of women. Our life expectancy is way less than women. So there it comes at impact. And again, I believe it's because we're not allowing this full energetic expression of our masculinity, of what it means to be men. Coupled with, like, men have done some atrocious things, some horrible things. So there's lots of evidence as to the impact it's had, and also, like, well, who are these guys now to, like, open up or change or grow, but it's or take up space, right? But it's so needed. I heard this saying the other day that in order to heal the world, we need to heal the hearts of men, and I really believe that there's some weight to that, right? And I feel like the men's work that we're doing and the men's work that I really align with that's out there now is doing just that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And where I see this, especially too, Bob, is in corporate America, in the cultures and environments that have been created, where it's, greed is good and step over people and be aggressive and who can you move out of your way. And that's all very masculine energy. But if you look, there is no human in that. There's not connecting with your employees and serving your employees' needs, but that is the model that has been built. And so we do need to break that down where it impacts our workplaces, our families, our relationships, our communities. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm right there with you on that. Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, on the website that I went to taking a peek, I saw a statement that I really want to bring up here. It says, "You cannot hide from yourself. It's time to start making new and powerful decisions. Define what manhood means to you and choose to create the life, health, wealth, and relationships you are committed to." Now, that statement could be both empowering and a little bit intimidating for
Yeah.
some men. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's what we call, like, in, I think in the coaching space, like it's calling you forward.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, most of the men that we work with, like, they have an intuitive sense. They know what is not working in their lives and what is working. And then there's some gap or barrier that has them actually take action to shift it and change it. And I think what's so important and powerful about the community that we create is that it's safe to explore all of that with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing any of this alone, and we need other men, powerful men who are growth oriented, growth minded, responsible, to help bring us all together, myself, and like bring us all together up, to what's next for us. And like I said, myself included, we will grow and become better men together. We can't lone wolf this. So, I always say, like, the hardest thing is just getting that man into our community, because that's the biggest, like, barrier. Because again, we've been taught to be self-sufficient. We've been taught to not need support, or that support is weak, or not need community. And what I found is men are really craving community. They're really craving a place to be seen and be heard and be understood. And I think one of the coolest things that happen at our events, or whether it's a retreat or a men's group, is that men start to hear what other people are saying as what they've been thinking. So I've had this belief or this thought, and here's another man saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're like me too, and that really starts to open up some brotherhood, some connection with each other, and then that just, like, opens the floodgates for men to start being really authentic and honest with not only where they're at, but where they want to go.
Yes, and I think you're talking about this community and the hesitation. This, as I've seen in other organizations, when you put men together in this brotherhood type situation, right, then they do feel that camaraderie. But why do you think, or let me ask you a little bit about, okay, you've got men out on the outskirts thinking, okay, there's this community, but there's this hesitation to jump into it. What is the general path that people follow to get into that?
I mean, I found for men, it's on the other side of some breakdown, whether that's they've had a huge health consequence, or they're on the verge of divorce, or they're going to lose their kids, or they've lost their job. Like, I would say more oftentimes than not, men finally wake up to the opportunities of being in community and doing some intentional work on themselves after some type of breakdown. They're finally willing, like, they've been buckled to their knees. Like, okay, my best thinking got me here. Everything I've done, everything I've been told to do, I've done, and still I'm at this proverbial crossroads. And I think it's finally then that the men are, like, willing to see it. And that's not all men, but it's quite a bit, actually. And, like, we're over here inviting them into, like, let's do some repair before that happens. Let's get you responsible in your health. Let's get you responsible in your relationships. And if you have children, with your kids, let's get you actually creating your life on purpose, for a purpose. And in a way, mitigate any of these potential breakdowns that could be coming, that I would argue aren't necessary, but are often the catalyst for actual change to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's typical human behavior for a lot of people. I'll do it when I have time, or I'll do it when, when I can clear some space, I'll do it when it's really important for me to do. But, so many times we face a crisis to do that. And I want to applaud you for, if people are considering this type of work, is you've got just one after the other testimonials from, it's very, what I want to say, what we would call stereotypical, very professional men. Like, they have made this commitment to go do this work, and they've had transformational experiences in there. So let's talk about a little bit, when you get men together who are these, CEOs, high powered, and you've also got younger men. How does that alchemy work?
Yeah, I think it speaks. I mean, so we have men from all types of diverse backgrounds, and we've got guys who are running multi-million-dollar businesses to guys who had to scratch together $20 to take a cab to the retreat.
Yeah.
We've got guys who are, fathers with 6 kids and loving relationship, but their business is failing, or like, we've got the full spectrum of I guess, like, what it means to be a man represented, which is great. And I think what happens is that a couple of things. One is that what we're speaking into, it doesn't matter where you're at in life, it's still going to be applicable. So we're looking at, our relationships to ourselves, to others, the people we love, the people we lead. We're looking at what does it mean to be living a life of purpose? How are we aligned with what we're committed to? Like, what is the action and accountability that we're in? We look at money. We do a lot of work around, like, spirituality, feeling connected to something outside of ourselves. So these topics, and that's just a few of them. These topics are, like, timeless, and I think they cross a broad spectrum, regardless of where you are at in life. And I think that what's also unique too is that that's going to be it's going to be at a different level for wherever each man is at, but they'll get their gold from it based on where they're at in their life. And I think what is cool too is, like, we had a guy who was, starting a business and struggling a little bit, and we got a guy sitting next to him who's created multiple $million-dollar businesses. And, like, that wisdom that gets to get exchanged and shared really benefits both. It benefits the whole community. And that guy in particular, his business is now taking off, which is, like, really cool to see that little community support structure actually create some tangible results, outside of our experiences.
Yeah. Now, that's really good to be encouraged by being surrounded by people who are at your level or even ahead of you. To have that support is really, really important. Yeah. So, Bob, what have you learned by being a leader of men?
That I'm still learning. I think that's one of the coolest things about it is, like, every time I'm in the container, whether it's a group or a program or, particularly, like, the retreats, I think that's, like, the big event. I'm just always amazed at how, like, different they are. And because the men are so different, and what the men need and the contributions they bring, and what they're up to, who they are, is just so different. And I think my whole job is just to, like, set up the container and get out of the way. And I think that's what I'm still learning is, like, trust, further trusting our community and the men to really generate the experiences they need, versus me thinking I know what they need.
Right.
And that goes in. I mean, that I think is also the foundation of what Alchemy of Men does, is, like, we don't know what you need. We don't know what we don't know your definition of what being a man is, but we're going to support you in figuring all that out. And so I think it's what I'm learning is I'm still learning, and I don't know if there's ever a destination to get to in that, because I'm not who I was yesterday. Like, we're constantly changing. We're constantly getting new information and new experiences that shape and mold us. And and I think too, is, like, trusting myself to be able to hold a container like that, and trusting, my partnership with Alex Terranova, who's the other co-founder of this movement, and, trusting the guys. trusting the process, trusting spirit, and all this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really true that the work is never done. And it is because of the influences we have, the people around us, like we continue to grow. And that's energizing. That's exciting to have that. So, Bob, what would surprise us about men that contradicts the narrative? Like, what are some things that would maybe make us take a step back and people would say, really?
Yeah, I think the level of depth, vulnerability, community, and intimacy that they're craving, like with other men,
Mm.
like meaningful stuff, right? Like, not just talking about sports or movies or the weather, actually getting in is like, here are my fears in my marriage. Here's what I'm concerned that's happening with my children. Here's the challenges I'm having in my business, or I got these test results from my doctor and I'm terrified. I think it's what's surprising is that there's a level of humanity that is there and opened up, and like there's just not a lot of outlets for it. I mean, there's guys in our community that multiple times have said, I have never told anyone else this in my entire life, and then they share it with us.
Mm.
So it's I think it's what surprises that is just that level of depth that's actually there, that level of getting out of the mind and into the heart and into the body, like how much they're actually craving that, and not knowing it until they're in it. That's the thing too, so
Right.
it's once we get them there, then it's really powerful to see them open up in this like more authentic way, this more authentic version of themselves.
Well, and I think they have the time and space and the environment to where they can see it, whereas before there's so many distractions and pressures and things
Yeah.
such as that. Yeah.
Yeah, which speaks to too, like when we're on retreat, we're like, we invite all the guys to put their phone in a basket, like disconnect, really be present with each other. Notice how that might be a challenge in itself, but it's very rare when we actually gift ourselves that time of complete presence with ourselves and with each other. And that's one thing that we really try to cultivate and nurture in our groups.
Yeah, that's really true. And how I found you, Bob, is a few months ago, Jason Frizzell, who is an executive coach, came on, and he was an attendee at your retreat, was telling me about it, talked about how transformed he was. And so made the introduction for us. But let's talk a little bit more about these retreats. So the Alchemy of Men retreat, I noticed the headline on the page is to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. So tell us a little bit, what is this retreat like?
Yeah. So that tagline, right? To transform the ordinary and extraordinary. Like there's a lot of meaning behind that. Like in alchemy. So alchemy was a precursor to modern day chemistry, back in medieval times. And the real goal was for them to transform base metals like lead or mercury into gold. So they would throw all kinds of experiments at it, like a little magic, a little mysticism, spirit. They were doing whatever they could to transform this ordinary substance into something extraordinary. And on our retreats, I think that experience, like how that occurs, like how does a man go from, an ordinary experience, right? Like most guys that come to our stuff, they're like, life is working, it's okay. They might have the most okayest life ever. And there's not that there's anything wrong with that. But there's this like yearning, there's this like, I know there's something more for me. And for each guy, it's getting to help them transform whatever that is for them. So they're going, like I said, they're going on, they're having that conversation with their partner that they may be avoiding, or they're signing that business deal that they've been scared to sign, or like whatever it is. But like what these experiences, again, going back to what I shared earlier, like really provide is safety, community, curiosity, and like exploration and like challenge, right? Like we go in with the guys, we challenge their knowing, we challenge, how they speak about themselves or others. we challenge what they think is possible for their lives, and start to crack and open them up to like, well, what if? Oftentimes we're running around life like I can't, or I won't, or not enough. And it's like, well, what if you could? What if there was enough? What if? And inviting them into new possibilities for their life. So what that looks like is, getting the guys together, getting them introduced to each other, creating agreements of how we're going to interact with each other throughout the weekend. We do a couple of workshops a day. Every night we do a fire ceremony where we do some of our deeper work, looking at passion and inner child work, spirit, drumming, singing. And it's like 3 to 4 days of that kind of work. And guys are at the end, there's like vitality returned, even though they're exhausted, but there's like a new excitement for life, and they're excited to go home and start practicing some of the things that we talked about at the retreat. We eat really well. We typically fly a chef in and have really good food. And some of the events we bring in a spiritual elder to come and teach us or have an experience with us. So that also adds a little bit of diversity to like the experiences of where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned about the food, because I thought, okay, just so our listeners don't think that you're out sleeping in the dirt and eating nuts and berries.
Yeah. No, we're comfortable. We're well taken care of. On our last retreat we had in Arizona, we had a fourth generation Apache elder come out to do a sweat lodge with us, and he asked that we all be fasting. So so we had 26 men who haven't eaten in 36 hours together. So, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. And it turned out there was a heat wave, so we had to postpone the sweat lodge, and we did another experience with the elder, which was really powerful too. But we don't make everyone starve. Everyone.
Yeah. And you had your own sweat lodge without the ceremony.
Yeah, it was a little toasty out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would be a sign? Because I think you've got an event coming up shortly, don't you?
Yeah, we have our next Alchemy of Men retreat right outside of Austin, Texas, October 17th through the 20th. It's on an old 500-acre cattle ranch. There's still some cattle on the property, so we get to hear them moving and stuff during the day. But it's 3 days, 3 nights, basically everything I just shared. We've got good like 17, 18 guys coming out right now with the room for a couple more. And it's a really, really cool spot. It's got a lot of history behind it. And typical Austin, they converted a bunch of old Airstream trailer campers into like single dwelling units. So there's a bunch of it's really funky, cool, artsy spot. We're outside most of the time, under an open porch, but it's a really special place for us. We were there last year and did some really, really good work. So there's a lot of good history for us there too.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing spot.
Yeah,
a really cool place to go see. So, Bob, when we pivot our focus to maybe move from working all about survival to bringing in purpose-driven work, often we are changed as a result. So imagine it's 10 to 15 years from now, when you look back on this work that you're doing, what type of impact do you hope to make?
I mean, I think like we're working with, the individual men and the men in the group, and we can only do so much while we're with them, and it's up to the guys to really take the work on once they leave wherever we're at, and we have support structures to support them while they're doing that. But, we're not just impacting the men, we're impacting their partners, we're impacting their children. And I would argue we're impacting their children's children. This will ripple out for time to come. And when I think about the legacy that I want to leave in this work is is healthier men, healthier families, a healthier planet, deeper connection to spirit, whatever that means for them. And that, men aren't, men aren't feeling like they need to fit a certain mold of what it means to be a man, but they get to fully express what that means for them.
Mm-hmm.
In that too, like my son is 4 years old, and there's a deep desire that he, comes under us and does some of this work with us if he chooses to. But it'd be really beautiful for me to be able to hand this off to him, at some point, if he wants it, So, like when I think about my legacy and the impact, I think it's hundreds, if not thousands, by then thousands of men that we will have impacted, and who they have impacted, that ripples out.
Yeah, that just gave me chills when you talked about your son. That would be amazing if that's the path that he chooses, if that's his road he goes to follow.
Yeah. And I'm pretty clear. He probably won't. He'll probably hate what I do. But yeah.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, never know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know men come to this and they're transformed. Do you have repeat visitors?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've got guys. So we're on our 6th retreat. We've got guys who've been at every one. Wow. We've got guys. Yeah. I would probably say a third of the guys, if not half, like typically are repeat guys, because again, like the workshops are, we're always doing a little bit of a different thing. Again, like what the guys each bring creates a whole different experience as well. So who they are, their experiences, their challenges, their triumphs, what they bring into the space, like it just makes the whole event different. And even like the energy of the land we're on or the locations we're on shifts and changes too. So a lot of guys come and we kind of have this rule that if you've come to 3, you have to start leading with us. So some of those guys we're training up to help support and lead us so we can continue to grow this. Like our vision is that, Alex and I are, we're the founders of this, but that there's men that are now, with our support hosting their own retreats, and that this starts to grow and get bigger and bigger, because it's really important work.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And that would be amazing to see it grow. So you've got the retreat you've got in Austin coming up here in just, when this airs, it'll be maybe about a week to 10 days. So if you're listening to that, you definitely want to jump in while you have this interest and explore to see what it's about. You've, as you mentioned, have one in Arizona. Do you have another way for people to get involved with you besides the retreat?
Yeah, sure. We have a weekly men's group. We have a coaching program that we run, and we do like one-off events like throughout the year. Best way to reach us is Alchemy of Men Retreat.com. That has our men's group, our upcoming retreats. We have 5 planned for next year. Looking at our coaching programs and things like that. We have a blog there, as a way to connect and schedule time to talk to Alex or I. Yeah.
All right. So there you heard it. The best way to connect, go to the website. We'll make sure we put this in the show notes. Bob, what a meaningful conversation and impactful that I hope to spread this episode out to all men, to the people who love them, the people who surround them. Maybe a man may not see that he needs it, but maybe the people around him who love him may see the need and pass this along. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.
Yeah. So no matter where you sit in the world, my takeaway from this conversation is that we are all one people and we all have work to do. I'm grateful for people who see a need, and rather than leaving it for someone else to go solve, they actually jump in and get their hands dirty and do it. Bob's passion for this has led him to a bigger purpose, and he can show up integrity by doing this work. What is it you feel a call on your heart to do? Is it so far outside of what you're doing now that you don't know how you'd get there? If so, I invite you to take my new Reimagine You quiz that will help you identify one of 4 paths you can take to become the next version of you. You'll get a meaty 10-page guide, a Spotify playlist, and a library of podcast episodes on this topic. And I'll also be offering the Reimagine Your Next Step 90-minute interactive workshop. And if you want to step in and start doing the work, I have a Next Steps to the New You 90-day program to start manifesting the next level life one day at a time. So until next week, go chase your passion. It will reveal your purpose and help you discover that life of so much more. It's the path we can follow to discover our legendary self. Thanks, everyone.